Welcome to Mysterious Goings On. We're going to get right to the show after these messages.
Hi, this is Cassandra Lane. I'm the author of We Are Bridges, a memoir. You're listening to Mysterious Goings On with Alex Greenwood.
Coincidentally, for Stanley Tucci, the actor, foodie, raconteur, it started in the dentist chair. Why is that a coincidence? I'll tell you in a minute. But what happened with Tucci was he went to the dentist and found that there was what amounted to be a cancerous tumor under his tongue, which he was told by the dentist to get checked out. Stanley put it away. He was reeling from the cancer death of his wife and decided he would just wish it away, and he didn't do anything about it. Well, of course, it grew, proceeded to get worse, and he was given a couple of choices. This is all from his new book, Taste, which I highly recommend. One choice was to pretty well get the tumor removed, which would probably damage his ability to taste and maybe even speak, and it was a pretty radical thing, but they were very close on this and they had to do something. Or they could do the radiation and chemo attempt to try to shrink the tumor down. He opted for the latter. It was a little less likely to succeed, but what happened was with that, it did work, but it came at a price, which albeit a small price compared to losing your life. But the price was he lost his sense of taste. He could no longer taste. And this is a hard thing for this man who is a gourmand and is pivoting towards the end of his career in acting and going into writing and broadcasting and talking about food to a large degree. The book is an excellent meditation on food, but this chapter about his cancer diagnosis and the fact that he could not taste anything for I think it was almost 2 full years. He would attempt to taste food when he got into the treatments, and it tasted to him, and I'm paraphrasing, like wet cardboard that tasted like crap. And he couldn't handle certain textures, and he had a hard time swallowing. In fact, he had to have a feeding tube inserted because he couldn't swallow. He couldn't even tolerate water, swallowing water. So everything was received via this tube for a very long time. And even after the tube was removed and the tumor was successfully put away in remission, he still had a difficult time tasting food, swallowing food, chewing food, the whole thing. One interesting thing he said, though, I remember from the book, is that, and there'll be a link in the show notes because you should go get it, but get the audio version. Let him read it to you. Let him tell the story. It's wonderful. And I believe I'll try and track down an interview he gave. I think it was on NPR that also will tell you some of this. But the thing that's interesting is during his recovery, he could not even smell food and made him nauseated. But he would watch cooking and food shows. He's a big fan since he's a child of Julia Child. And so he would watch food shows because he dreamt of food, but he couldn't smell food and he couldn't taste food until fairly recently. He lost 30 pounds. And through the good offices of his physician and the supportive family, he seemed to be coming out the other end just fine. So why is it a coincidence? Well, for me, it started in a dentist chair. Let me backtrack. When it started actually was Key West, Florida in July of 2021. My family decided we would try to, we've done everything right during the pandemic, and it looked like things were really settling down. This was pre-Omicron, of course, and we were all vaxxed and decided we might thread that needle in the middle of summer when it was the hot Joe summer, when things were going to be all right, and travel. And Key West, it's a special place. If you've read any of my books, you know that. It's also a place where my wife and I honeymooned way back when, 15 years ago. And our daughter had never seen it, so we took her, of course. And what I decided to do, because I'm a huge fan of conch fritters. I know I'm a little weird. I love I love state fair corn dogs too. And I'm not proud of this. Well, I am proud of this. Hell, I'll say it. I once ate 8 of those things in a single day at a state fair. It was, at first it was because I loved them, and then after that point it was just to see the look in my colleagues' faces when I ordered yet another corn dog. And soon, that for a short time that summer, that was years ago, became my nickname. But anyway, probably the equivalent in Key West to a state fair corn dog, in my opinion, is a conch fritter. If you've ever had a conch shell, you take the conch out of the shell and you fry it up in a batter. It's usually a sweet batter. It's delicious. And I think we ate at several restaurants, so I think I had conch fritters at just about every restaurant that offered them. And I documented each one on Instagram or something like an idiot. But you know what? I didn't care. I was having a great time. I was in a wonderful town with good food, my family. We felt alive and happy again. It was a wonderful trip until I bit down on that last conch fritter from a cart on Mallory Square. We were watching the sun go down, waiting for the green flash, and I bit into it. And apparently there was a wee bit of conch's revenge in there. There was a tiny bit of conch shell that managed to get in there in the fritter, along with the conch meat and the flavorful batter, etc. I bit down, and didn't fully realize it at the time, but I broke a tooth. Right? To be fair, I broke a filling in a tooth, but it was a mess, and I didn't really know it at the time. I felt something, but I didn't think there was a real problem until the next day when a piece of tooth came out while I was eating, and I realized, oh great, so I've broken a tooth. I'm going to have to get it looked at. Fortunately, it was the last day of the trip. Got home, called the dentist. They got me in a couple of days. And it was not my regular doctor. He was the partner of my regular long-time doctor, or dentist, excuse me. I've gone to her for, goodness, 14 years or something like that, and maybe 13. And it was her partner. He's an accomplished dentist. He's younger, but he's accomplished. I'd seen him before, and he's easygoing, nice guy. Well, he did a very nice job fixing the tooth. But I remember at the time in the chair thinking, boy, he's going really heavy on the anesthesia. He kept giving me shots. I'm pretty pain resistant when it comes to teeth. I've had bad dental issues my whole life. I've had several root canals since I was a very young child, actually. I was very young. I was one of the first to have a root canal at that age, I believe, in my town. Everybody was like, well, we're going to have to do this. But long story short, it's not that I don't brush my teeth. It's just I've got a certain body chemistry where it doesn't break down sugars and things like that very easily. So I have some problems with tooth decay. It's better the past few years because I brush like crazy, floss, water pick, the whole thing. But anyway, that said, I've had a lot of experience with procedures, and I'm not afraid to be in the dental chair, and I can handle a little pain. And I told him that, but he gave me several shots to numb me up. He would give me a shot and say, I'll be back. Then he'd race to another cubicle. If you've been to a large dentist office, you know that no dentist just sits there with you. They do their business with you. Then you go to another cubicle and anesthetize you. Well, of course, what do? They say, well, we'll wait for this to kick in, and I'll be back. They come back, and he starts doing stuff, and he says, do you feel that? And I said, a little bit. And he says, oh, I'll wait, and I'll just give you some more shot. Okay. Well, somewhere in there was 3 shots or so. Maybe it was 3, could have been 4. Normally I just get a local and then get 1 shot, and I'm ready to go. But I think he did 3, even 4 attempts at this. And I don't know why, but he was just cautious about that. And I like to think it's because he didn't want me to be in pain, which is a lovely thing. You want a dentist who is concerned about how you feel. Well, he fixed the tooth, as I said. He did a wonderful job, and I went home. Now, that was on the right side, the lower, and I couldn't feel anything because he'd numbed me up pretty darn good. But I noticed several hours later, and of course, being a veteran of the dentist chair, I expected that I would regain feeling in my tongue and in my jaw and my gums within a couple of hours. It should wear off. Well, we're talking dinner time. It was still that way, and I couldn't taste anything basically on the right side of my mouth, and really hardly could taste anything at all in general. All I could kind of taste was textures. And that sounds funny, I guess, but it's true. I could just taste that I had something in my mouth. Now, it didn't taste like like poopy wet cardboard, like Stanley Tucci, but it didn't taste good. It just didn't have much of a taste at all. And I thought, it's just, maybe it just shocked my mouth that what he did. I don't know. So I thought, well, I'll wake up the next morning and I'll be fine. No such luck. I woke up the next morning, couldn't taste my coffee, and I couldn't also, and it wasn't as if it was completely numb though. What it was the beginning of an odyssey where the right side of my tongue was completely dead as far as tasting anything or even really feeling anything. I couldn't taste my coffee, and I thought, well, that's not good. So I called the dentist office and they said, okay, let's see how you're doing tomorrow. If not, you can come back and see us. No change, came back. They looked at it and my regular dentist saw me and she says, okay, wow, that's not so great here. No, actually I didn't come back the next day. I came back the next week. I apologize. I had a cleaning due on Tuesday. This was on a Friday and I thought, I'll just wait and talk to my dentist on Tuesday when I'm in for my cleaning. She saw me and she got a look on her face when I told her the symptoms and what was going on. And she's like, okay, we're going to put you on a heavy dose of steroids to try and see if we can nip this in the bud. She says, here's what I think happened. I think he hit a nerve with the shot, and it either put the nerve to sleep or damaged the nerve. And I'm like, well, okay, what does that mean? She said, well, I'm going to give it to you straight. And this is one reason I like her very much. I call her Painless. So she's a great dentist and a good person. And she said, I've only seen this twice in my entire career. She's about 60 something. So she's been in business for about 35 years. She says, I've only seen this twice. And both times the good news is they recovered. I said, oh, good. Well, how long does that take? And she said, usually about 6. And I'm thinking, days? Weeks? No, months. 6 months. And I'm just like, what? And she says, well, if he hit the nerve and these steroids don't help much or don't help, you may be looking at weeks or months. And 6 months on the outside is the 2 that I've observed in my career. It seems right about there. The nerve could heal itself and come back and you'll regain taste and texture and all that stuff. Well, I wasn't happy, of course, but I took the steroids and she was very good and just said, hang in there and we will be in touch. And I took the steroids. It was like a 10-day course, 7 to 10-day course, I think. And it was a lot of steroids. It was like a pack. It was like just carpet bombing my body with steroids for about a week, I think. Because it was one of those deals. It was a step down deal where the first day you took like 5, then the next day you took 4, that kind of thing. Well, sad to say, it didn't seem to help. A week later, I called and said, I don't think this helped. And they said, well, why don't you come in? We'll take a look. And my dentist is about a 45-minute drive from here and where I live. And I know that to a lot of you out there on the coast are like a big deal. Yeah, here in the Midwest, we're kind of used to blessed with convenience. So anything over 20-minute drive is arduous. But anyway, and and the fact that I hadn't needed to go to the dentist that often, I was like, gosh, got to go back to this dentist. But all right, I go back and it's him this time. It's the guy who gave me the shot. He didn't start off so well. He comes in trying to be light, washes his hands and just looks at me and says, well, it really stinks to be a statistic, doesn't it? And I went from being, aren't we in this together? And boy, what a pair we are. Boy, Doc, you've made a mistake and I'm paying for it. And I'm sure you feel bad too. He is going so far out of his way to minimize this by saying, well, you're a statistic. Because in other words, what he was saying was, this rarely happens. This so rarely happens. You're just one of the lucky few who this happens to. And that's when my demeanor changed, I think. And I'd taken my mask off so we could look around. And I left the mask off. And I had a not heated, but very just barely civil exchange with him. Very terse and very tense, I'm afraid. Because I just thought that was one of the most tone-deaf things I'd ever heard. Come in and just say, boy, trying to be funny. That's not funny. And I told him, I said, we're going on 2 weeks here where I haven't been able to taste my food properly. And I don't think that's amusing at all. And he blanched and realized, yeah, I effed up. I probably shouldn't have said that. He didn't say that, but that's what I assume he said. And he was a little shaky. Because I said, what are we looking at here? And he said the same thing. But here's the difference. He said, as opposed to my actual dentist, He said, this is happening to me 6-7 times, and I've been practicing almost 20 years. I'm like, maybe you shouldn't give shots, but I didn't say that. So he said, how about we just check in every month on this? And I said, well, I guess I have no other choice. There's nothing else I can do. He says, I think you'll be feeling better within 6 months. And he apologized. He said, I'm sorry you're going through this. And I said, that's great. And then I said, well, I'm not coming in here once a month. And he says, how about I just call you? And I said, that would be good. I'm not going to drive out here just for you to ask me if it feels any better or not. Well, a month later, he does call me, and I can report that it has not changed. And at that point, I just kind of gotten used to the fact that I really couldn't taste my coffee. Certain foods like potato chips, which I don't need to eat anyway, but come on, when you don't feel great, you want comfort food. Certain foods like potato chips were alien and hard to eat. I would bite into my tongue quite a bit. You've all been there, right? That's no fun. My taste buds on the left side of my mouth, I think, were working very hard to kind of pick up the slack from the right side, but it just nothing tasted good. And that went on for 3 solid months where nothing tasted good, and everything was kind of just not fun when it came to eating and tasting food, and just enjoying a simple thing like a great cup of coffee in the morning was no longer something I had. And if you're a regular listener to the show, you know that I've talked to you a couple of times about ailments, and this is another in the ailment series, right? But I've talked about having kidney stones, and I always talk about, the absence of chronic pain is something that we take for granted. You know what I mean? Because kidney stones, when I had a set for 10 days, you can listen to that episode. I'll try to remember to put a link in there. But otherwise, if you don't see the link, it's called The Knife in My Back, that episode. When you have an absence of chronic pain, you don't think about it. But then that opened my eyes, though, to how people who do have chronic pain, who cannot get relief, who often turn to substances and substance abuse to just try to alleviate that, how they feel. And then I did another one called Losing It, about being falsely diagnosed with glaucoma and potentially sight loss, going blind. And I thought, again, the idea of the absence of vision. If I couldn't see, it put me in a funk. It was terrifying. So here I am talking about the absence of taste. I've been called this before, but I am literally tasteless. It's it's awful. It sucks. And when I heard that Stanley Tucci was going through this, in a far worse situation, of course. I mean, he also had chemo to deal with, and radiation, and potential all kinds of things that he had to deal with because of it. And I was basically just the guy who hopefully would get his sense of taste back within 6 months, and without doing anything other than living my life. So what I missed out on, of course, was a lot of great meals that, don't get me wrong. I had some meals. I had some nice meals, even went to a restaurant here and there, but just couldn't fully taste anything. I got pissed off. And, and part of me says I'm not proud of this. And then part of me says, though, when the dentist seemed kind of cavalier about it, and you're going on 3 months and you can't taste anything, and it may never change. So I have a friend. He's an attorney, a personal injury attorney. I called him. And here's the thing that he said. First thing out of the box is, oh man, I am sorry you're going through this. That's awful. Why was an attorney more empathetic and more understanding than the dentist who did this to me? And that just made me mad all over again. And I said to him, what are my options here? Long story short, I could sue. But he explained to me very carefully, he says, these kind of things happen a lot, okay? A lot more than you think. And these lawsuits, he says, I've done 2 of these. They are very difficult because you've got to have a sympathetic jury, and they've got to believe you really are suffering. They've also, you're going to have expert witnesses, and that costs money. Long story short, he talked me out of any kind of a lawsuit. And then I said, well, I wanted a pound of flesh. I was angry. He said, you could do a demand letter. And he had actually knew who these people were and had been there to this dentist, so he couldn't do it. And he talked me off the ledge on that one. I cooled off and decided I'm not going to sue, and I'm not going to issue a demand letter for some kind of compensation. Although it would be nice if he had offered some kind of compensation. But of course they can't do that. If they admit that they did something wrong, that does open the door for them to be sued. But I experienced some other stuff while I was dealing with this. and this was actually a good sign. I actually went through a period where, well, my tongue always felt. You ever drank a cup of hot coffee too fast and you burned your tongue, or tea, or whatever, and then that tongue just feels weird for a few days or a day or two? That's how my tongue felt all the time. So it went from not feeling anything at all, not being able to taste anything, to it just felt like it was burned. And that made it worse because it was an active annoyance. It wasn't pain per se, but it was an active annoyance. And I think it's called burning mouth syndrome. And that happens to people in those who are expressing the most taste buds. I might be a super taster. I don't know. I don't think I'm a super taster, but apparently I have some pretty developed taste buds. But I had this burning sensation. And I had to go to my periodontist for something else. This is a dentist who deals with gums and stuff like that. As I said, I have had my share of dental issues. I've sat in a lot of dental chairs with my mouth open and not being able to say anything, which was probably a relief for most people. But anyway, I digress. He said the fact that it does feel like, and by the way, he's been practicing for 40 years, and he says, he's only seen this happen twice, and he says usually it comes back, but he did hear of a case that didn't. Like, thanks. But he said the fact that you do feel a burning sensation means something good. I said, what? He says, well, when he hit that nerve, he depolarized it, which is what he said is what it did is it just made the nerve go the wrong way. He said the fact that you have a burning sensation means, though, that the nerve's not dead. It means it's trying to come back online. That burning sensation is just your body, your brain interpreting the signal it's getting as being a mild burn kind of feel. And I thought, oh, okay. And he was so smart about that. So that was a good sign. Okay, we're talking July, August, September. That's September, into September is when I'm thinking about lawsuit, and then I'm not thinking about it. October, and I'm just thinking to myself, gosh, I had another call with the dentist. He called me again in October, and I said, no, not there, not better. And he was again kind, and I laughed it off. I knew he felt bad. He was just clumsy. He was clumsy with with a needle, and he was clumsy with his words, but he did not intend to hurt me, and I was over being angry. I just wanted it to get better. Well, I kept saying to myself, gosh, I hope this improves by Halloween, because, I want to eat candy and enjoy it, and I want to go into Thanksgiving and enjoy dinner, and I want to go into Christmas and not be bothered with this and not feel the sensation and not being able to taste things. Well, by Halloween, I noticed a distinct difference. The burning sensation went away quite a bit, but it went to the shooting pain sensation, like somebody was stabbing me in the tongue. It sounds ridiculous, right? Well, when I talked to the periodontist, he said, no, that's the nerve coming alive. He says, you're going to find those little jolts, and it's going to be weird. Just soldier through. You'll be fine. And I was. But I couldn't. I just resigned myself to the fact that, well, maybe I'm never really going to get 100% better. Maybe I'm never really going to enjoy the taste of barbecue that I smoke here at my house, or ice cream, or just Doritos. I'm not going to be able to enjoy Doritos again, which again, a lot of these foods I probably shouldn't enjoy at my age, but somebody as inimitable as Joey Fatone said something. He said, if you combine good flavors, food turns into an orchestra. Well, my deal was my orchestra had turned into a punk rock band that only knew 2 chords, and I wanted my orchestra back. I thought, there's so many things that center around tasting things and center around your ability to interpret flavor, and I just did not want to have happen to me what happened to Stanley, which was a very serious couple of years where he literally had to eat through a tube. Now, I wouldn't have to eat through a tube. My point being, he might as well eat through a tube because he couldn't taste anything anyway, and it just made him nauseated. And I was at a point where I just couldn't taste anything, and I got so frustrated. There's just certain foods I just didn't even bother eating, and I went to a restaurant, didn't order something expensive because what's the point, But something happened after Halloween, and I started noticing that probably by the first week of November, I was starting to regain a little more taste in my right side of my mouth. I was also not having that burning sensation all the time, and that continued to get better and get better and get better. And here we are today on Christmas Eve as I record this, and I am drinking a very nice, hot, wonderful cup of coffee. and I have not experienced any burning sensation. I would say that I'm not 100% healed. There's still some weirdness with my tongue. It's hard to explain, and I won't. But you know when it's not right? So I'm not 100% there. And actually, the dentist hasn't called me. He's overdue to call me and check on me. So that's okay. That's fine. As I told my periodontist, who I have to go see in January for a new implant. Yeah, that's me. New tooth implant. I asked him if he knew anybody who was a good dentist, and he says, "Oh, you're going to move on." And I said, "I'm moving on from that guy." Yeah, and it's not because he made a mistake necessarily. It's not because he was clumsy. It's because it's a long drive just to go for the guy who cleans your teeth and occasionally fixes a filling. But yeah, my confidence was shaken by them, and I just want to start over with somebody else. And that's what I think I'm going to do. But I'll tell you, if you ever have something like this happen to you, and I hope you don't, because it's no fun. And again, I did not have cancer. I'm not Stanley Tucci, who really dodged a big bullet. But I did get a really solid look at what it's like to be tasteless. You know, I love podcasting. I have since 2006, back when you had to use like a Dixie cup with string to make the thing work. And that's why I'm so excited that we recently moved Mysterious Goings On to Anchor FM to record our podcast. I gotta tell you, I don't regret it a bit. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. First of all, it's free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. And you can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast all in one place. Not going to lie to you, when I first heard about Anchor, I was a little dubious because I've been doing it the hard way for so long. But I got to tell you, it's very easy. Use a Stripe account. Get sponsors. You're not paying monthly hosting fees. The sound quality is great. The distribution is phenomenal. Friends, download the free Anchor app today if you want to start your own podcast, or go to anchor.fm to get started. Remember, you heard it here first on Mysterious Goings On. Thanks so much for listening to Mysterious Goings On. Don't forget, we have a complete archive of all of our interviews, monologues, updates, live readings, dead readings. All of that stuff is available at mgopod.com. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to us so you never miss an episode. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all the usual suspects. Please join us there. Again, don't forget, mgopod.com also has links where to find me on social media and how to get in touch in case you want to be a guest here on the show. Well, I think it's time that I move on for this week, but until next time, keep reading.